portion. And for the purposes of this episode, I've defined deconstruction as where in story, aesthetic form, or directorial or actors' approaches, deconstruction means that you have a Western film which veers away, and sometimes quite sharply, from traditional Western genre storytelling. Robert Altman made two deconstructed Westerns. 1971 was McCABE and Mrs. Miller, which is justly acclaimed for Warren Beatty and Julie Christie in the title roles. The cinematography of Vilmos Zsigmond, the location filming, the very astute use of Leonard Cohen songs on the soundtrack, and basically was the right film at the right time for the counterculture of how the West, as we know it, had very rough and tumble beginnings before quote-unquote civilization came through and homogenized and was willing to kill to achieve that. And probably because Altman was coming off of MASH, too, that the film did do business at the box office, and for the next few years, Altman was able to go largely from strength to strength, with the hypothesis being around 1975 with Nashville, and now we got to the other Altman, Western Deconstruction, a film that's very good in its own way, but neglected, and it's called Buffalo Bill and the Indians, and had the misfortune of coming out around the Bicentennial period in 1976, when the U.S. wanted to celebrate a not too probing examination of the 200 years from the Declaration up to the 70s, and in that period you had things like, and I was old enough to go and be part of it, the American Freedom Train, which Johnny Cash would plug on TV, and what the American Freedom Train was various artifacts, even some movie props, and you'd get on the train. I believe the train where it was somewhere outside of Wichita Falls, I think around the Shepherd Air Force Base, and you'd whiz on a little slow tram built into the floor, and you'd look to your left, look to your right, and you'd see the carefully curated 200 years of America. And for Altman, with Buffalo Bill and the Indians, he was sort of snake bit in two ways. Number one, Pauline Kael having come through for Altman by reviewing an early cut of Nashville and making sure it came out pretty much as Altman wanted it. That turned out to be Pauline's last come-through time, and she turned her nose up at Buffalo Bill and the Indians, which was done with Dino De Laurentiis, I believe, involved, and it came out through United Artists. And if I read correctly, I think this kind of killed Altman being able to direct Ragtime, which of course we know later went to Milos Forman. And the other thing was in 1976 when, for the first half of the summer, you had mainstream audiences wanting to see things like The Omen, and they weren't interested in seeing Paul Newman deconstruct the myth of Buffalo Bill and the Wild West show, and didn't want to see a movie that might make them think a little too much about American history as it occurred versus a sanitized circus version of American history. And to me, the strength of Buffalo Bill and the Indians is the Nashville-like ensemble interplay and the humor of show business as it was in that period. And you have Burt Lancaster turn up for a little bit as Ned Buntline, who was a actual myth-making dime novelist from that period. And it's just really, it's a neglected film, and in a current environment where you have the Republican Party all agreeing that American history, especially white America mistreating black America and Native American First America, that the Republican Party makes loud noises about critical race theory, meaning don't teach that in schools, keep the myth alive, which is the kind of thing that probably if Ray Bradbury were still alive, he, as kind of conservative as he could be, probably would reach for a trash can and throw up at the